Welcome back, everyone. You are here with us live at AWS Cloud Infrastructure Day. My name is Fiona McCann. I am a solutions architect in the public sector, and I'm here with my co-host, Art, who just had a pretty interesting interview.
Yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun to talk to Willem, to talk about his journey, and also to give some ideas about all of the development that we've had as well.
Absolutely.
So I think it's time to transition over to our next segment.
I think we should, shouldn't we?
And so a lot of folks, all of this AWS cloud is built off of, well, I think that Tom here, who's sitting next to me, will tell us in a second, it's built off of networking as well. But before we get too deep into this, I'll have Tom introduce himself and tell us what he does here at AWS.
Cool, thanks for having me. Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Adamski. I'm a principal solutions architect focusing on all things networking. So I deal with customers, helping them send packets between their network environments on AWS or on-premise.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you say all things networking, Tom. We've got about 20 minutes with you. You think you can cover all things networking?
Probably not.
So where are we going to get started today?
Yeah, I can scrape the surface.
Okay, let's maybe do our best.
I know you just had an interview with Willem, and he talked a lot about the innovation we do on the hardware side in the compute space. There's also a lot of that happening on the network space. So we're not just building our own chips. We're not just building our own hypervisors. We are also innovating within the fiber that we're pulling down, as well as we build our own network equipment, so our own switches.
Yeah.
And this gives us a lot of interesting capabilities because we can now control the network end-to-end, add encryption when we want to add encryption. In many cases, when you're forwarding traffic between resources on AWS, there would be multiple layers of encryption. There's some cool things we can do with optical failover. So we have cases in the past where there would be a digger cutting through a piece of fiber in one of our availability zones, and something that would normally be a huge issue. There was a fiber cut. I think we lost 16 packets, which is pretty much nothing.
That's phenomenal. There was a fiber, someone destroying one of those things when I worked at one of my first jobs, and we had to go home for a couple of weeks actually while they repaired it. But I also want to just comment. We have a prop over here as well. We talked about fiber.
Yes.
We call this our fiber tree, I think, right, Tom? Do you want to tell us a little bit about what we actually have included here, so for folks can give an idea of what networking?
Sounds good. Yeah. So this is what's in the ground forwarding your traffic. In the fiber tree, there's some interesting examples here of what we have to do. So I think this one here
wow, we can pull it out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can pull it out.
Yeah.
I think that one there had a termite coating to prevent from termites getting into and destroying the connections. I think that has to be in Australia.
Okay.
And then from an innovation perspective, there's a really cool...
Yeah, what are we looking at there?
Yeah, so this is a hollow core fiber. So in this regular fiber that we kind of use today everywhere, the light bounces around a lot, so it's not actually traveling at the speed of light. It's maybe 2/3 of the speed of light. In this hollow core fiber, because it's kind of hollow and a little bit more rigid, you can actually get closer to the speed of light. So we're improving even how quickly you can get light from one location to another.
And what that transforms for people, that speed of light transforms for people speed. In terms of sending those packets that you talked about earlier.
Yeah, every little counts.
Yeah, well, every little thing counts, especially when you're on the other side waiting for something to happen as well here.
Absolutely. If this is something that you've ever worked with, let us know. Those of you who are watching and commenting, have you ever worked with this type of equipment? And switching to a more software side of things, I think you have a bit of a demo for us. What are we going to be chatting about in terms of the demo today?
Cool. Yeah, we're going to talk about application networking. So I had to decide which direction I'm going to take the demo. And obviously, I can't really demo the hardware, unfortunately. I can just show you the fiber.
Would have been a little bit more difficult for us to set up.
Yeah, it would have been fun to see, though, for sure. Yeah.
I've never seen speed of light.
Maybe next time we'll display the speed of light.
Yeah, we'll do that then.
So we're going to focus on application networking, which is innovation within the networking space to help you connect to different applications in a simpler way. So I got some whiteboarding. I have a demo in the console as well, and we can check that out together.
Let's do it.
All right, let's start.
Cool. So hopefully you can see my whiteboard here. This is a very simple example of a VPC, or virtual private cloud environment, with a virtual machine and EC2 instance on the left. It has some IP address range, which is a unique identifier, 10201. And then with VPC on the right-hand side, that's another private environment that you would create as a customer, and you would put your resources in there. And again, an example application running on EC2. In real-life scenarios, the applications could run on any type of compute. Right?
Okay.
It could be a container, it could be container in Kubernetes, or in our Elastic Container Service. It could be even a Lambda function. So you could have a bunch of different compute options to host the applications. We're keeping things simple for today. We're going to focus
nice
on
and simple for us.
Yeah, on the connectivity purely.
Perfect.
It's for me. It needs to be kept simple here.
Okay. So with traditional networking construct, and if there's network engineers out there, you're probably familiar with those constructs, if you have two networks, you can create some kind of logical connection between those networks.
Okay.
And within AWS, that could be something like VPC peering, or maybe more advanced construct like Transit Gateway, Cloud One, which can let you build these global networks across all of our regions, and then connect them back to on-premise as well.
Right.
But when you're connecting to VPC this way, you're ultimately saying that I'm now allowing VPC1 to fully try and connect to everything in VPC2, and I'm allowing VPC2 to fully try and connect back to anything I have in VPC1.
Right.
And that's not maybe what I want, right? So in many cases, I just want to limit that access to specific things. So
it's set up in a non-ideal way.
non-ideal
right?
way, because then I have to go and do like a second pass over this environment and say, I want to restrict access using things like security groups, maybe bring in my own firewalls.
Because here in this example, you want VPC1 to be able to access just that application that's running on EC2.
Correct.
But maybe you have some other application running on a different EC2
That's
or
right.
on Lambda, and you don't want them to have access to that.
That is totally right. And it sometimes gets even more complicated if you're doing any acquisitions. So say you acquired a company that has presence on AWS. This unique identifier, the IP address, if it's overlapping, you're in trouble. It's going to be really complicated.
I didn't even think about that. Okay.
Now it gets complicated.
This is why I'm not a network engineer
I couldn't do
now.
it.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, so with application networking...
Yeah, how are we solving this?
We're solving this with application networking, which is kind of an evolution of networking where we're having the network being more aware about the applications that it's transporting. And we're going to make it look as if the application on the right-hand side appears to be hosted within the VPC on the left, or very close to the VPC on the left. The service we're going to talk about is Amazon VPC Lattice.
Okay.
I think we launched that a couple of years ago. And I'm going to talk about some of the features that came out since then as well.
Okay.
But to be able to establish our connectivity, first we will need to create a construct called service network.
All right, so that little circle is our service network.
Service network. You can think about it as like a container for all of my applications.
Okay.
And then I will have a target group representing my application here. So if you ever used elastic load balancing, there's this concept of target groups.
Right.
It's effectively a way to track, as my EC2 instances are changing, I'm adding more, or if these are containers, I'm adding more containers, the target group will keep track of what's going on.
They all sit within the same target.
So we don't have to worry about, I got to add another instance. So those are the two components that we already have in place, and I'm just going to jump in.
Oh, so now we get to see it in the console.
Yep.
I love it.
Let me zoom in a little bit, and then it's all going to be under the VPC section. And in
easy to find.
Easy to find.
Right? No, seriously.
I was wondering where we could go with this.
I'm just saying.
And then we have a couple of VPCs here, the 10.201 and 10.200. So matching to what I have here, 10.201 is the client, 10.200 is the provider.
Perfect.
Under the private link and VPC Lattice. So there's a few sections here under VPC. So that's where you want to go. We have is the service network already in place. I'm not even going to show you how to create it because it's pretty much a single API to just say, I want a service network, get it ready.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
So we set it up in
already created.
advance. Right.
Yeah. And then this is my target group. So in the target group, and I'm keeping the naming convention very consistent. So I'm calling it service one target group. And I have one target, that's my EC2 instance.
All right.
Just like in your drawing.
Yep. Coincidence?
I'm following along so far.
Yeah, cool.
Make it easy for us. Yeah, that's the best part.
So now what we want to do is somehow connect this target group to the service network.
Okay.
And we do that through creating a service. So that's what we're going to do together. So services, where is my service? Oh yeah, Lattice services.
There it is.
Yeah. Create
A
service.
service.
Create the lattice. What are you going to call it?
Service one.
I like it.
So some of the things that you can do with a service, so we can imagine the service being kind of like a load balancer that will receive your traffic and do something with it, forward it to the target.
Okay.
You can use your own domain. So I'm going to show you auto-generated domain. So when we're doing the demo, you're going to see the host name that we're connecting to, the DNS name being very long, kind of awkward. In production, you'd probably change it to your own custom domain, so something that is easy for you to remember.
Right.
And then we now also have the option to add permissions. So
this is nice.
yeah. So this is the first time we're actually allowing customers to be able to use identity and access management to control access to their own applications.
And maybe we should ask as well the audience how familiar they are with AWS IAM. I think a lot of people have set up IAM permissions. And I think this is also an example of how, when we launch services, the integration that we do across the board. We didn't just launch VPC Lattice, we have it integrated with the IAM service. So for those who've set up these policies, make it easy. You can benefit from it.
And so how does that make their lives easier, the fact that it can integrate with IAM?
So now you can add policies on top of the connectivity to control access. So you can say, I only want someone with a particular role or with a particular set of credentials to be able to connect to my application. Otherwise, Lattice is going to drop that traffic.
And so we could use an existing role that's already set up
Correct.
in IAM.
You can use an existing role that you have deployed on an EC2 instance. So in my example here, if I had a role on that EC2 instance can find out the credentials of that role and use them in the request. So that's one extra caveat, that you do have to make sure that whenever you do a request to Lattice, you actually include the IAM credentials in there.
Absolutely. And we have some comments from our viewers who are saying that they actually consider IAM to be one of the foundation services of AWS. Someone else, Sama Holmes, said that IAM is a critical service for secured architecture. And we're seeing that in action right now. So thanks for pointing that out, for sure.
Exactly. And I think that when we talk with customers, I know that most customers have taken advantage of IAM as well.
Definitely.
Have used it. Okay, I think we need to
so
head
we
back
created
to
a service network.
we created our service network here. Yeah, we're going to run out of time if we don't.
So I'm not going to share the resources. I'm not going to set up monitoring, but if you want, you can enable logging to see who's talking to who and kind of have some auditing.
I just will say I encourage you to enable the logging.
Would
As a general rule of
good for
practice,
security.
enable it, not just for security, but also for tracking and knowing what's happening in your system. Sorry, you're going to, let's move, we type in our port
It's a totally good call out. Enable logging everywhere you can. That's, that's
As an engineer, I just enable it. I'm telling you. Yeah, no, well, it is going to save you time later. I promise you. You will need it. Wait.
Yeah, sounds like it's based on experience as well. So
yeah. No. Everything I've done is perfect.
Yeah, never had a problem.
Never caused a problem myself.
Okay, so we're looking at listener identifiers
yes,
here?
so now the listener is what the service is going to listen on, so receive connections. So we're going to say, I want to listen on HTTPS, so port 443. And then when I receive connections on that port, I want to forward to the target group I created earlier.
Okay.
So that's the stitching of the service and the target group. And we can immediately associate that with a service network as well, the one that created earlier. And just here a summary and create a VPC Lattice service. While this is happening, here's what we've done. So we created this service and then associated with a service network.
So that's the service.
That's listening on port 443.
Okay.
And then that can forward traffic to the target group. So now with this association, we gave the ability for the service network to be able to reach into VPC2 and connect to the application that it needs to talk to. So you don't have to set up any additional like peering, transit gateways, any additional connectivity there. You're ultimately giving access straight from the service network.
You mentioned a few things there, but let's maybe dive a little bit more into what are some of these steps that it's eliminating? What are things that people no longer have to worry about setting up themselves?
So if you're moving an application to VPC Lattice, you don't have to use any other networking construct. So you don't have to use transit gateway. You don't have to have peering. You can even remove load balancers.
Wow.
So it allows you to remove a lot of components in the path and kind of integrate it into one thing, rather than you having to go in and add these components yourself.
Absolutely. We have a couple comments in here. CBFTW says that logging is the only way that they've solved some configuration problems. Sounds like Art, that's been a similar experience
I have
for
a friend out there.
And Victor says that port 443 is very popular. So maybe this is something that Victor might be implementing in their applications.
All right.
Cool. Okay, so final step. So right now we have a service. We know how to send it to the target group. We need to somehow connect this client VPC to the service network. So that is the final step. We're going to go to our service network, click on it, and then you can see that we already have one service associated.
Yep.
And then we need to associate a VPC. Okay. There's a couple of different ways you can do things here. If we have time, I might mention what they are, but for now, we're just going to keep it simple and just do a VPC association.
Good plan.
Let's do it.
Create a VPC association. You just pick the VPC you want to connect to, my client VPC.
Yep.
I need to specify the security group. I pre-configured some of the security groups.
Perfect.
It's almost like you're prepared.
Yep. I've done it before. Okay, so this association is happening now. So now the VPC is connected to the service network.
And Tom, I just want to stop you really quickly to tell you that you're getting compliments on your drawing skills. Mermillo says that you have elite paint skills.
Thank you. I think the drawing is fine. I'm still concerned about my writing. That's the problem.
You can't be perfect with everything at the same time.
I know.
Hey, we can read it. Fiona and I, that's all that counts. Right?
Maybe just because I said what it was.
Right.
So
Well, who cares?
We're also
Whatever
getting a question in here. Jill Rochelle says, how difficult is it to move from that traditional architecture, peering load balancers, et cetera, to this service network?
It's a good question. It's not difficult at all. You can have these things running in parallel, and you can decide on an application by application basis to move them one by one to another model. So it's pretty straightforward.
There you go.
Perfect.
Jill Rochelle, maybe it's time for you to start trying it.
Yeah. Cool. Well, after we finish this demo,
Exactly.
listen to us first.
Okay.
That's true.
So we got to connect to to our client. So I'm going to do that now. I have it here, client. I'm going to connect. I'm going to connect through the browser, so we don't have to do an SSH session outside of the browser.
Perfect. Make it easy for us.
Okay, so as this is happening, how do we know what's the host name that we need to connect to on the service? So we need to go and check. Whoops. We need to go and check in the service configuration.
What is the host name?
Exactly.
What
So
is it?
if I'm going to click on it, there's a domain name here. This is the long one I mentioned earlier.
Super easy. I can memorize that right now.
So normally in production, you would convert that into
I'm
your
gonna
own
quiz you,
custom
Fiona.
domain. So if I do a DNS lookup on it,
Yeah.
it gets back with this IP address. So this
Okay.
IP address is a range that we reserve for the service network. So the VPC knows to send all that traffic to the service network.
Okay.
And then finally, I'm going to try and connect to it, HTTPS. So I'm going to use curl, which is like an open source tool to connect to HTTPS services. And I'm going to paste my service name, and voila. OK, awesome. So I've configured my application to reflect back some of the information that it's seeing from the request. So this is its own local IP address, 10.200. So we know we're here. We're into 10.200. It's seeing the connection from this IP address, 169.254. So it's seeing the connection from the service network on this path. And then X forwarded 4. So that is actually capturing the client IP address. And interestingly, here we see an IPv6 IP address. And the reason for that is I haven't told you, but this VPC also has an IPv6 range. And what happened is the EC2 decided to use the V6 to connect to the service, and then V4 was used to connect to the target.
So that tells me that it has integration with both IP type.
And
Okay,
it's very common to use it for like migrations between different IP address spaces as well.
All
and
right.
families.
We have a question. It says, can the target group be an existing ALB, and can the service be spread across multiple accounts?
So target, yes, can be an existing ALB. The service usually would live in a single account.
Okay.
But you can target whatever you want. So you can point it to a thing that might be in a different account as long as you can reach it.
Okay. All right. And we have another question. Can we use curl to connect to the protocol instead of HTTPS?
I just used curl. Yep. So
there you go.
I did use curl. So
Demoed curl.
yeah,
Come on.
we
There
demoed
you go.
curl.
Where were you when
We
this
got it
happened?
all ready for you.
So one quick comment I want to make is we're showing one service. You can have dozens of services in here in production, right? And then you can also have other things like databases. All of your applications could actually be hosted in the service network. So from a perspective of an administrator, you can immediately see like an audit of every single application that you've exposed.
Yeah.
With traditional networking, it's kind of a free fall. You open it up completely.
Right.
As a network owner, it's actually really hard to see what's going on.
Right.
With application networking construct, you're exposing applications one by one. So it's very easy to audit.
It's all consolidated. The person who's auditing doesn't have to look in multiple different places, do that extra configuration. Boom, it's sitting in the service network.
Yep.
So from a network administrator perspective,
This is making your life easier.
yeah, life a lot easier as well. So Tom, we don't have a lot more time here today. I just want to thank you for coming out and doing this. Anything else that folks should know about this? I think everybody should get started and try out VPC
For sure, yeah.
Lattice.
If you have a chance, play around with it, set it up. It's super simple to configure, as you've seen. You can start with EC2 instances, and then you can go as advanced as you want, like pointing to Kubernetes deployment or Lambda functions.
There you go.
All right, there you go. Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining
Thanks
us.
for joining us.
Thanks for having me.